most of the women never worked. They stayed home and did, you know, kids and all that stuff. And the men went out and worked, you know, 6 days a week, whatever they needed to do to, but that was your job. Like your job was to provide for the family.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. When we're brought into a world, many of our reactions are learned behavior. We mimic those around us that came before, thinking that they must have it all figured out. Second guessing and doubting are instinctual emotions. An unfamiliar response bubbles up inside that is foreign to the way we were taught. You don't know what to do, starting to think that you may be broken, weak, unsuitable for your line of work. That doubt begins to weigh heavily on your mental health. Now we are left with a decision, whether to follow our gut feeling or do as we learned, even if the results are not desirable. It might be time to blaze a new path and take the road less traveled so that we do not perpetuate the same mistakes. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Keith Shibley all the way from the Washington, D.C. area. We connected over the phone, over social media, and you got a hell of a story. And we're going to talk about the suffering of an advocate, because I've never met one advocate that doesn't come with some junk in the past. So thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
You got to be able to talk from experience. If you're telling someone what to do, and you never did that before,
nobody's going to listen.
No.
Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. As police, we don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car.
You know, my father doesn't trust anybody either.
No.
He got a car from Hackensack Toyota.
And there's going to be another sale this weekend. That one I know for sure.
Look at that.
And my car's almost up too, so I'll be over there as well. So each week we take a question from our audience. This week's social media question comes from Kenny Rod. It's not Kenny Rogers. It's just Kenny Rod.
Oh, Kenny Rod.
Kenny Rod.
It's his half cousin.
So people think that police work is all about seriousness and you got to stay stoic. I've never laughed so hard being a cop in my life out of any of the other jobs that I've ever had. There are some calls that'll just make you piss your pants funny.
But see, the funny thing is, when you go on that job and it's funny, you can't laugh on that job.
or you try to make your partner laugh. So Keith, can you recall just one event? Because I know there's so many of them. That was one of the funniest calls that you can remember.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. I think just the funniest one was I was pretty new. I think I was on for.
It's always the best.
I think I was on field training or something, and we got a call for a man running down one of the major airports there, completely naked, and I was thinking to myself, they were like, "This one's for you, rookie. How are you going to handle it?" And
exactly.
I'm like, how am I going to handle this naked dude running down the airport?
At least you got something to grab.
Oh God. But yeah, I mean, it all worked out, but it was funny and scary at the same time, actually. Yeah.
You ever see that guy on the Family Guy, the greased up deaf guy?
Yeah.
They strip the guy naked, they grease him up, and he goes, "You can't get me."
Yeah.
Mike, what do you think?
I mean, there's so many through a 20-year career.
Yeah.
I mean, we could say, well, like I said before, we could make a whole show out of this. One time, I was real young on a job too. We had a domestic, and my lieutenant's there, and it was late at night, and I got my flashlight out, and for some reason I kept it on. I was pointing it at the floor. I see a cat on the floor, just looking at the flashlight. So I start fucking with the cat, going like this, moving it closer to the lieutenant. I shine it on the lieutenant's leg, and I start shaking it back and forth. The lieutenant's talking. The cat jumped right on his leg and clawed his leg. And the lieutenant goes, "Ah!" Oh, it was hysterical.
So shortly after I came on, the movie Super Troopers came out. So we used to do stuff on car stops. We used to try to make each other laugh. I used to do a couple things to try to make people laugh. I would go on any medical call. I'd grab my notebook, grab my pen, and I'd start, "Okay, what's your name? What's your date of birth? When was your last bowel movement?" And I would say it stone-faced and watch my partner behind me just, can't laugh visibly or audibly, but sit there and just shake laughing. And or I used to pull cars over with an English accent, which was pretty funny. But I think the funniest call I ever had, 6:30 in the morning, and this is back in the day, you didn't really do anything between 3 and 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So we get a call of a woman's got a baby squirrel in her bedroom. And we're wiping the sleep out of our eyes. We go up to there. Now, something about me is I abhor bats. They freak me out. And I'm not mean to them. You stay in your direction, I'll stay in my direction. So
if anybody's listening, they could send us some of those rubber bats.
Not rubber bats.
We'll hang them all over the studio.
I'm not. I'll bite the head off of that one. But they I don't know. They make my skin crawl. So we go up there for a baby squirrel, and I look over there, and there's this little tiny. It doesn't look like a squirrel, but it doesn't look like a chipmunk. It's got this big bushy tail. We get close to the thing, and it's kind of jumpy, and all of a sudden it jumps and spreads. And it's a flying squirrel. Now, flying squirrel, for people who haven't experienced it, is like a bat and a squirrel had a child. So all I'm thinking in the back of my head is there's a bat. As this thing jumps, you see two grown men, 6:30 in the morning, in this woman's bedroom, walking around, yelling around like Clark Griswold. It's on me, get it off me, get it off me, it's on me, it's on me. We're chasing this thing. It's like a Benny Hill episode or a Three Stooges episode. We're just trying to trap it and everything. Well, there was a central vac in the house, right? So we plugged the vacuum in. It's got this long tube. I get behind the thing. I sneak up behind it. You know, I'm doing like the cartoon sneak up, and I clunk it right over the head. The thing takes 2 steps and falls over. I suck it up at the end of that. I hold it out the window. I'm like, all right, turn it off. And it drops out the window. And thankfully, I didn't have to kill the thing. But 2 grown men laughing and frightened at the same time. But that's some of the stuff that we had to deal with. But that incident was so funny that we talked about that for years.
You know, it's funny when cops get together, they say they tell war stories.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear because everything's embellished.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear the funny stories.
Yeah.
Like we had a lady, she said there was people up in her attic. We go there, it's a crawl space. Winds up she's got dementia or something. So I told her, the way to keep these people out is put aluminum foil over all your appliances. It's like, oh, thank you very much. Next time we go back there, her daughter's there. And this lady has aluminum foil over everything. The microwave, the toaster oven, the TV. So the daughter grabs me on the side. She goes, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, yeah. She goes, do you know who told my mother to do that? I'm like, it was me. She goes, that was fantastic.
I had a woman lived right on the corner street, so all the cars, we told her that she had to put tinfoil on her, and she was a pain in the ass, but she had some mental issues. Tell her she had to put tinfoil on her windows. Otherwise, the satellites will be able to read her thoughts. And for years, she had her tinfoil on there. So,
you know, we used to do whatever we could do to rectify the situation and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, right. You on those certain calls, you just want to go home. So Kenny Rod, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we do like the fun ones, so keep sending in the fun ones, and we will try to get those questions on the air. Now, what I want everybody to do is go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey, and go visit Gus at Cubita Cafe. Some of the most delicious handmade food made with love and care, and you'll understand when you go there.
And expertise.
Expertise. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to pair. Like, he's given me a whole food education. You pair this with this because of the acidic and the sugars and this and that, and he cooks very healthy, which is very good for me. It was one of the few times that I've ever gone out to a restaurant and ate things that I don't normally eat, and my stomach didn't hurt, and that's how you know that it's fresh.
The staff there is excellent. The atmosphere is excellent.
And you know the mark of a good place is how you treat your employees. And I know Gus treats his employees really well because one of his employees made this beautiful handmade Lego truck of his food truck. His food truck.
His Cubita food truck.
The Cubita truck. So go to Cubita Cafe, 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley. Tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you, and you're going to have a good meal. I guarantee it. So Keith, you know, we connected a while ago. And, you know, you started watching our show. I don't even know how you found us.
I think it was Instagram. I think y'all popped up on Instagram somehow, and I clicked on it. And
it wasn't any of our Instagram lives.
Yeah.
Not at first, I don't think.
Our Instagram Live ones.
Well, the Instagram Live promos.
So the promos are the one thing where we just sort of let loose and sort of, you know, empty the glass that we ingest in here all the time. So you'll notice our Instagram Live posts are a little silly. They're goofy. They're meant to make you laugh because that's our release. Everything we put out is, we don't want to be dark and gloomy all the time. But what got you about the show? I'm interested to hear this.
I've been kind of going around talking about the mental health and substance abuse of law enforcement. And it's kind of been a hot button topic in a lot of areas right now. But after I watched episodes and I talked to you a few times, and it was just real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, some people, I think they're trying to cash in on this for a minute.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, without a doubt.
and it's not you guys. Like, I could tell that right away.
Because it's the hot topic.
Yeah.
You know, you have all these law enforcement suicides and everything, and everybody says, "Oh, well, mental health issues, mental."
Next week they'll forget.
Yeah, they'll forget.
Yeah.
But we, you know, that's why we do this, to keep mental health alive and going, so people know what it's all about. We don't do it for the money.
Yeah.
What's it? Money.
Mission, message, money.
Message, money.
And when you chase the money on anything you do, not just podcasts, podcast world seems to be amplified with those three things. But when you do that on anything you do, like if you got into a peer-to-peer type of situation where you're trying to help a fellow officer not go down the road that you went to, if you got into that for the money, you're not getting very far.
Correct.
But I remember Amanda Coleman telling me this years ago. And she said, you know, be careful with the whole mental health thing, because while there's a lot of money being thrown at it, be careful what you take. And we haven't taken a dime from this show. Every bit of sponsorship that we get goes back into the show, because I think it would be disingenuous of us to take any money out of this. We're doing this for the betterment of somebody across the table from us getting their story out. So the mission, message, money, if you take that into every endeavor outside of your career, of course you need money to live. I get it. I understand it. Trust me, I need money to live. I got 2 growing boys. But the money will follow.
Yeah.
You know, you do what you love. And actually, I learned that from, do you like motorcycles at all?
I mean, I'm not into them like that, I guess.
So there used to be a bike builder in Brooklyn named Indian Larry. And Indian Larry, when he was younger, was a big, he was a bank robber. Unfortunately, he used to do this stunt where he'd stand on his bike and ride his bike standing on the seat. But in 2005, he fell. But he was a beautiful bike builder. And
go on Fail Army, and you could see plenty of those guys standing on their bikes.
Right. So, but Indian Larry used to make bikes. He made a frame for a motorcycle out of chain. He was a welder. Wow. So gorgeous stuff. And I'll never forget. I was watching Biker Build Off or one of those things, and he says, "If you do what you love, the money will follow." And it seems like you have a love for trying to get this word out. But before we get into what you're doing now, I know anybody that's, like I said in the beginning, anybody that advocates for anything comes from a place of experience. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit of how you grew up?
I grew up in Richmond, Virginia.
Start smoking at an early age?
Yes. But
Right as soon as he got out of the hospital after
well,
birth.
if you write down 95 is the Marble.
Phil Morris.
Yeah.
Phil Morris.
Both my parents are from Lebanese descent, and we have a very big family down there. So I grew up with a lot of family.
I do dig your bologna.
It is pretty good.
That might have been the gayest thing you've ever said on this show.
Don't judge
me. I didn't even think
Don't
about it that
judge
way.
me.
Just had a whole
Didn't even
judge.
think about it that way. Thank you. But it was a very good childhood. Very close knit family.
Parents are both supportive. And,
yeah. Great parents,
Were your
brothers,
parents
2
born
sisters.
here, or did they come over from?
My parents were born here as well.
Is there like a Lebanese community down that way, or did they
Yeah.
just matriculate to
Well,
Richmond?
It just I can't say that big word.
Went to.
It went to Richmond. I think when my grandparents or great grandparents came here, they were in Detroit, up north, and then everybody just ended up in Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great, man. There was a Maronite Catholic church we all went to, and it was like on 10 acres. They had a swimming pool and basketball courts and
Real community-based church.
So you'd be excited, like, even if you didn't want to go to church, you want to go to church because afterwards you're swimming and playing with your cousins, and it was a big community thing. It still is down there. But I have a very supportive family, but very old school too,
Explain that.
Just, it wasn't really, I don't think it was beaten into us, but it was kind of like, you know, the emotional stuff. Men don't
cry.
Men don't cry.
Yeah.
Like old school Lebanese ideals.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of just like the masculine part, like you know, most of the women never worked. They stayed home and did, you know, kids and all that stuff, and the men went out and worked, you know, 6 days a week, whatever they needed to do but that was your job. Like your job was to provide for the family. And I took that plays into my situation, you know, down the road.
There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Providing for your family that way. You know, there is no plan B. There is no safety net for you, for men.
Right.
And this leads to one of the reasons why men die earlier. You know, we're more unhealthy than women, but the stresses that we carry on our back and on our stomach, and it runs every piece of our life. Now, are your parents still with us?
Yes.
They are?
Both my parents still live in Richmond. Brothers and sisters are still down there. I try to get down there as much as I can, but yeah, very supportive through my career, through the troubles I had, and you know, they're still very supportive today with everything I got going on.
So I guess as long as they see you're a hard worker, they're going to be supportive of you.
Yeah.
So growing up in Richmond, what was you're a kid. You're this kid running wild, and it's pretty wide open down there once you get out of the
city.
The city.
Yeah.
What was your thing? Were you a sports guy? Were you hunting and fishing?
Sports mostly, but I mean, you know, those were back in the days where you had to be out of the house by 9 o'clock. You come in and eat lunch, then you're out of the house till 9 o'clock. So a lot of exploring in the woods. We had a pretty big wooded area near our house, but lots of football, lots of basketball, tennis.
I don't even know how old you are.
I am 46.
You're 46.
Yeah.
God damn.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're going to keep him under 58. I know that.
Yeah, but look at a guy, man. He's 46 years old. He looks like he's 28.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I don't feel 28.
Yeah.
I'm 58. I look like I'm 57.
But we had a nice big community pool down there as well that we could just walk to and spend all day, all summer. It was a good childhood. Lots of good friends down there.
Community, watched out for all the kids and stuff.
All the parents knew all the parents. And
see, that's how you want to grow up.
Yeah.
So after you go to high school, everything's good, normal.
Yeah.
Go to college?
Yeah. I went to a military school in Richmond. It was a day school. It wasn't somewhere where you spent the night, but it was Benedictine
boarding school.
No, it was Benedictine military.
So
school.
Why military school?
Both of my grandfathers went there. One graduated in 45, one graduated in 46. My dad graduated there in 70. My uncle graduated there in 84. So it was kind of like a family thing. And
see, his uncle's my age. I graduated in 84.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, let's get him.
But it was, they were still very into strict male Catholic bringing up.
Like the discipline that goes along with military?
Yeah.
I didn't think the Lebanese population were Catholic. Am I wrong on that?
It's a huge population is Catholic.
It is.
Yeah,
I'm educating myself. That's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah, very big.
But so the military life probably fit in, like your father probably loved it because it fit into that regimented lifestyle, that traditional lifestyle. Men go out and do all the hard work. Women stay home and take care of the household. Yeah. A lot of times the women's job is way more difficult than the men's.
And I mean, my dad's a pharmacist. He bought his own pharmacy. I don't know what grade I was in, grade school at some point. And I mean, Monday through Saturday, he's gone from 6 in the morning to 9 at night because it was his store. No, he was going to, on Sundays was dad's resting. But a very good provider, but very hard worker. And I mean, from an early age, we were there on Saturday sweeping and stocking shelves and helping out. And it was just kind of like a big family business.
He was the guy that got the good drugs back in the day.
Yeah. Which kind of plays into your story.
Kind of kicked me in the ass a little later down the road.
Sounds good when you're young.
That was a segue.
Yeah. But that work ethic that was drilled into you is something that's going away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there's good and bad in the way that we were all raised.
Mm-hmm.
Where we hit, yes. Where we hit too much, sometimes. Were our parents strict with us? Yes. Were they too strict with us sometimes? Of course. But there's benefit, there's good and bad. So, you said you're a father now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take those lessons back to your kids?
I try to. I mean, I've got a son that's a freshman in college, and then my daughter's 13. And I try to. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just so much different now. It's that So they don't know how to interact with other kids if they don't have a phone in their hand. And,
or playing video games and, you know, or texting each other with all these LOLs and OMGs and
or having to go out and get a job at 15.
Yeah.
You know, they just, and it's my fault. You know, we kind of spoil them too.
It's a generational thing.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times you don't want your kids growing up like you grew up, so you're trying to give them more. And
sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, not everything, like I said, not every way you grew up was bad. It seemed bad at the time. Like, where your other friends are given a lot more freedom than you, you seem to have turned out in the end okay, but it wasn't always that way.
No.
So you're sitting around in a pharmacy. Tell me, what was the first drug you took?
That young, I didn't even think about it because I wanted to be a police officer from, my parents said, since they couldn't remember. I mean, I think 4th grade, you know, you write those little books you put together. I wrote a story about a gang that stole donuts and the cops had to chase them. Like, I've always just wanted to be a
you don't steal the cops' main
donuts. Come on now.
So that's how I lived kind of growing up. In high school even, I would drink. You know, I played football and ran a track and would try to play baseball, but I was really bad.